Hey, everybody.
So we're super excited. Like, we just read the reviews, and you guys gave us 5 stars.
5 stars on iTunes. Thank you so much, you guys.
That's amazing.
That is very validating.
That's amazing. Except for, okay, so apparently we don't get notifications about that, and the way we found out was I was trying to figure out how to share the link to the podcast on the Instagram story, because we did an Instagram live asking you guys what you want to talk about, because we have tons of questions. And in scrolling through that, I was like, what? We got reviews? We got 5-star reviews?
That's so awesome.
So thank you so much.
Thank you guys for listening, and thank you guys for complimenting.
Yeah. I mean, we all need a little bit of love and validation, so Thanks for giving it to us.
Yeah, it keeps us going. Now we're charged and ready to go.
I know. I don't need my coffee now. I got a review. All right, so we'll dive in a second. We have lots to cover because you guys have sent in so many messages, and it's so exciting. But we're now officially a month here in California.
1 month.
We're still technically Airbnb-ing it. Still trying to find a place to go.
It's not as easy as we thought it would be.
Right? You know, okay, so we had I almost peed my pants, but crying, laughing moment the other day.
Oh, man, that was a good one.
Man, because so our first podcast you guys listened to, and this is all about being totally transparent and authentic, so I feel like it's fine to share this.
Yeah.
First podcast you guys listened to, we had just gotten here in Santa Barbara, and it was all about how to effing go for it, like following your dreams.
Just have faith. It'll work out.
And then sometimes, like, faith is met with reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started the journey. We're starting out and selling everything in Tampa and coming out here and, like, whatever fits in the car, and we're going to figure it out, and we're just going to, like, wing it. And then a month goes by, and it's like, hey, where are you guys living? And we're like, Airbnb, vrbo.com, still figuring it out, but it's hilarious. We were laughing so hard because it's gone from, like, all right, we're looking for, like, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, like a home. The homes out here are like bungalows, but it's gotten so just, like, cutthroat of, like, people find
We'll
places.
take anything. What do you have? Is there parking on the street, or do you have a garage? What do you have?
You got a den? We can turn a den into a bedroom. It'll
That's
be fine.
We can use a shower curtain.
We can make it work. We can make our
The
own.
desperation level has...
Oh, man, but yeah, we were cracking up because, like, while we're driving around Santa Barbara trying to find a place, we're like, how to effing go for it? You deserve the life of your dreams. We're like, you got a 1-bedroom? That's fine. Like, we can make it work.
There was one that was, like, a home, and the yard had been divided up into, like, 3 sections, and, like, one section was, like, a mother-in-law's suite guest house that was being rented out by somebody else, and then the home was for rent, and then they had, like, squared off a little section of grass and parked a motorhome on it, and a whole nother family was renting out that, and all the same yard, and we were just like, so, what's the inside of the house about? And then we died laughing about it after, because we were just
the
like...
ridiculousness.
We were, like, about to split this yard with, like, 2 other families living.
Oh my God.
It was ridiculous.
Not because, like, just to clarify, not because, like, you're broke. It's just because everybody wants to live here.
Mm-hmm,
Everybody's trying to find somewhere to live, but yeah, we had a pretty hard laugh
It was
about
a really
that
hearty
one.
laugh.
Because it was the moment of, like, realizing what we were doing. We were like, wait a minute. What?
We were about to...
This is a terrible idea.
Yeah, I don't want to live there. It was funny.
That was great.
Yeah, really hearty. We've had a few hearty laughs of just the ridiculousness of it sometimes, of just the stress of it. Sometimes you just gotta laugh about it. Stress is too much.
Well, the reason why it's so funny is because, like, I think it's such a reflection of every journey you take in life. Like, it's so exciting in the beginning, and you're totally fueled by faith. And then when you actually, like, get into it and start doing it, you almost get so desperate. Instead of, like, keeping that faith of, like, it's gonna work out, we've got this, you get so desperate that you're about to do something like that, and then you're like, whoa, wait, what? Like, you're just like, anything will do. Anything is fine.
Let's
just
slow
help
down
me out.
a second, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a really hard laugh, but I'm proud of us. We're keeping the faith. We definitely are not moving in with 3 other families. Anyways, yeah, so we've been getting settled. We did find a lovely home that Bear is loving, and if you guys saw on Instagram, I've been updating you on how snuggly he's been, but also how much he loves dirt. And
oh gosh, you gotta bathe him like every other day.
there's these little things, we think they're mice, that like it's weird because there's these little holes. For those of you not watching, I'm like trying to visualize this for you, but there's like these little teeny holes, except for they're everywhere, so it's not like
everywhere here, and I think they're little mice or something,
but they pop out like little gophers or like
little heads come out.
Yeah, you just see like a little head and you're just like, what was that? But it's been like a game for Bear, the dog. It's like that game at like Chuck E. Cheese where the little like moles.
Also the crows.
Oh my
We'll go out in the
gosh.
yard and be like, how is there dog food? Is that a bone? What is he smelling? What is that?
What is he eating?
And then the other day I went out into the yard and there was a crow eating like the head and guts of a rat.
It's
and
disgusting.
it flew off and like left it there, and I was like, oh my god, that's what Bear's been sniffing.
Seriously, they like deposit animal parts every day. I went out there the other day. Like now I have to go out there first and make sure there's not some random heart and kidney and
Yeah.
whatever and like all the time, like I'll come home and Bear loves it. It's like a little scavenger front.
Every time he goes out now, he's like, I gotta find something.
Yeah, except for it's frustrating when you try and call him back because he's like sniffing it out so much that, yeah, like we'll come out and we're like, these effing crows, like stop dropping your dead animal parts.
That's pretty funny.
But yeah, so California's it's been quite an adventure, only a month in.
Yeah, there's been some ups and downs, but some good laughs too.
Yeah, so on that topic.
Yeah, what a great segue into our questions for you guys.
Seriously, like where do we even start with that?
Well, you've been busy. You've been doing a lot of interviews lately and a lot of podcasts, which has given, you've been asked a lot of questions lately, so a lot of it is addressing those questions. And a lot of them starting new business questions, where to begin kind of questions, and just how to make money doing what you love kind of thing. So
yeah, we have a lot to cover in this, so this is great stuff to listen if you're on a drive or if you're on a walk. Or actually, I feel really just off on rabbit trails today. I listened to the Amy Schumer and Oprah podcast the other day.
Oh, it's up now? Okay.
It is up and live, and I felt like I found my people when I was taking a long walk. I do these walks like every day just because it clears my head. I was taking a long walk listening to their podcast, and Oprah asked Amy, she's like, so what's your favorite introvert thing to do? And Amy Schumer's like, I take really long walks and like put my headphones in and totally just zone out, and I don't know why I like sitting in silence and just turning everything. But like as she's doing that, I'm like on my walk, like so, like I'll walk for like 5 or 6 miles, and I was like, that's exactly what I do. Like I have to do that. So anyways, if you're taking a long walk and you need some good valuable content, got you covered.
Yeah, definitely. It's very cathartic.
So should we start with the personal stuff that we were going to talk about in regards to friendships and relationships, or should we go right into business things and sommelier things?
I think let's go ahead and answer the business questions first.
Okay.
Since those were specific things that people asked, and then we can get into the other stuff.
Okay. So one of the questions that came up, and this is my super sloppy writing. Here's the video. I'm old school and write everything down. We both do. One of the questions that's been kind of in question and struggle, that's been a theme both with messages through social media and through personal coaching clients that I'm working with, is it seems like everybody is struggling with, I want to either be a business owner or I want to be my own boss or start my own brand or whatever it might be, but I have no idea where to start. Like I have all these ideas, and then that's where everybody gets stuck of, well, how do I know which idea to run with? And then even then, like, okay, so I'm going to start a podcast like this, but then where do I even start with that?
Right. And the focus of it, of just being overwhelmed with opportunities and possibilities of places to take your idea.
Yeah.
And just getting clear about it.
Yeah, and I mean, interestingly, that I've never had that struggle. I've actually had the opposite of, I think I start too many things that maybe weren't necessarily worth my energy or effort. But so to answer that and where to start, if you're somebody who has a lot of ideas, first off, like just choose an idea, because here's the reality of it is none of those are going to disappear. You're either going to get more passionate about it or it's going to become less interesting, and then you're going to know it wasn't right to begin with. So just select an idea. when you select an idea, trying to think of a hypothetical example that would be beneficial for people. So you're starting e-courses, or you want to start your own online coaching program or education series. Come up with your idea of what your first topic is. Forgiveness is more than saying sorry. Anyway, so forgiveness. Work backwards. And I know we've mentioned this before, but it's kind of like, gosh, I was talking on another podcast this morning. It's kind of like if I always had a dream, which I do have a dream of owning a gym and winery. That in itself, if you focus on the idea and the long-term vision too much, is going to overwhelm you, because it's going to seem like there's so much you have to do that you're going to stop. You're just going to get stuck with that of like, oh my gosh, like my mind and my head is spinning and there's 5 million things to do and now I don't even know where to start. So a lot of times that's the problem. It's not necessarily that you don't know how to start. It's just you've overwhelmed yourself where now it seems too overwhelming to start. But if you'll take that, and I mean, I do this a lot, like this is kind of the brainstorming creative process I'll actually do on paper, is I'll like start just like visualizing, dreaming of like, oh, one day I want my own gym and winery and have all these people, et cetera, except for then after that, like idea fairy has come and gone. I'll then work past, I'll then work backwards in the analytical side of things of like, okay, so if I really wanted to do this, what tools do I have now and what tools don't I have that I need to work on? Okay, well, I have the fitness background. And in Tampa, this was actually something him and I had multiple conversations about, because I was debating on whether or not to go more into the fitness and gym route or if I should pursue my education more in wine. And I'm glad I did wine. But so you go backwards until you get all the way down to the most simple step of where to start. So going back to your e-courses or anybody's e-courses or coaching program. What do you want to coach? Well, I want to coach about forgiveness. Okay, awesome. Let's work backwards. How many people do you want to coach? Do you want to coach just one-on-one? Do you want to coach a small group of 5? Do you want to be on the phone every single week? Or do you want this to be something people follow on their own? Okay, well, I want people to follow it on their own with the opportunity to have access to me. Okay, great. So now let's work backwards from there. Now you're going to make all of your outlines and figure out what your course is even about. What are the main topics? And not so much to the detail that you have the actual content of, you're just outlining the course of what is it about. Okay, let's work backwards again. Now, what is each module about? If it's 8 modules, identify what you're going to talk about. Is it a video? Is it text? Is it both? Work backwards from that. What is the title? What is the website? Like, it becomes so, when you just kind of, instead of trying to do all of that at once with where to start, if you work backwards to where it's so small and so simple of like, well, what do I want to call it? Step 1. Step 2, I'll buy a domain name. Step 3, how many people do I want to work with? Like, it just becomes a little less overwhelming and easier. And then as you show up every week, every month, and you're slowly implementing all those things, you'll end up looking back and realize, I have an online course and it's exactly what I wanted, or maybe even better than you wanted. And it wasn't nearly as overwhelming. But it's also the whole thing of being invested in the idea of it being something long run, instead of just, oh, I'll just do this really quick and then in a week I'll have this done. Instead of like, no, this is going to develop over time, and as it develops over time, it'll get better. And then it's so much easier to just break down step by step what you need to do each day.
Yeah, and once you actually like put it on paper like that and you see the end point and the steps you have to take to get there working backwards, it's way less overwhelming, it's way easier to focus on it, and it's way easier to track your progress of what you're doing, because it feels less like discovering as you go along and more like actually having a plan.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, even if it's like, this question specifically has come up 5 times, and it's only Wednesday, 5 times this week in regards to business and entrepreneurship. But it's the same thing too, if you were doing like an exercise regimen or anything, like, okay, I want to lose 20 pounds and compete in some event and do my first CrossFit competition or do my first tennis competition, and it's not competitions, matches. Matches. I was like, that's not right. Okay, so that's great. That's an awesome goal. Let's work backwards. Have you gone to the gym? No? Okay. Get your gym membership or get your coach. go to the gym 3 to 5 days a week, start tracking your nutrition. So like think of whatever your goal is that you're working on in terms of that. Like keep that long-term vision, keep that big idea. What can you do right now with where you are? Because there's always something you can do with where you're at right now.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I've also heard too from multiple people, you, Marie Forleo, a few others, that just makes it so simple is just asking that question of what problem are you solving and who are you solving it for?
Mm-hmm.
And just keeping that clear focus of that, so that whenever you get caught up in the whole building the website or whatever, or if you're really creative like me, you're just like, oh, you kind of get carried away with like the design. I should have business cards and I should make this and I should make this. And then it's like, wait. You already know what problem you're solving and who it's for. So is this going to, is that still the focus kind of thing? And it just kind of keeps you back on that, back on track kind of thing, which is really helpful.
Yeah, and I think both are super helpful. Like you need to be creative, but you also need to be strategic in what you're doing. Like it's fun to be creative and that's what makes it so exciting. But if you're just creative all the time, there's a reason you have your left and your right side. Like you have to use them both in partnership to balance things out, to actually make progress and have whatever business or life that you want. Mm-hmm. But yeah, just write it out on paper. And I mean, I go through so many of these notebooks because like I'll have an idea and I'll write it out and I'll brainstorm and I'm like, and then I could do this and this and this, and then I'll contact it. And then sometimes what happens is you do that, you break it all the way down and you're like, no. Like that, now I know X that idea, like that's not exciting anymore. But like sometimes that also helps the process of elimination of figuring out which one to run with too. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Seeing it on paper is a big help too, because then you have that thing to go back to, and like you said, you kind of can see if it gets really draining putting it out on paper, and you're just like, oh, I guess I'd have to do this too, or something like that. Then maybe it's not the best idea. Follow the ones that you're really excited about, of like, oh, I get to do this too. Oh, it'd be so fun to make this and do this and stuff.
Follow the path of enthusiasm.
Follow your bliss. Yeah.
The podcast that I did last night, and shout out to James and Kelly at Fitposium, is a fitness one, but we were talking about that. We got on this whole new age topic of just like energies and meditation and law of attraction, and that's what all three of us were saying is follow the path of enthusiasm and what lights you up. So if you're ever you feel really stuck on knowing what's right or what's not really in alignment with your goal or your path, step back from it for a little bit and just check in with yourself. Do you feel drained and exhausted and overwhelmed and stressed? Or do you feel energized and like enthusiastic and excited? That's a pretty good gauge to figure out if you're on the right path. Not necessarily on or off the right path, but just do more of what lights you up and less of what's draining and exhausting.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like that is a good segue into, I'm kind of like skipping around because some of these kind of easily go into the next one. So one of the other questions that came up then is when you are building either a brand, a website, a video, podcast, YouTube channel, whatever it would be, what would you say is the most important thing to focus on for somebody who's new at it? Other than the business stuff of like, yeah, okay, so I need to do videos, I need to do audio and podcasting content. What else do you feel like is the most important to focus on?
As in regards to setting that stuff up, I would say one thing when you're doing this kind of stuff, like podcast stuff, or if you're wanting to create a YouTube channel or social media accounts or something like that. I used to run the YouTube channel and production things for a school, a university, and the biggest thing is don't stop the creative process by getting too caught up in pre-editing things. You'll talk yourself out of the momentum, and you don't want to lose the momentum. Mm-hmm. So if you're making videos or something like that, it doesn't have to be quality level 10 from start to finish when you're getting started. If you go on your favorite YouTubers or podcasts and see their beginning work, it's usually pretty crappy. Like the video, it's all bad. Don't think it has to be perfect. Gretchen Rubin has that great quote, "Don't let perfect be the enemy of good."
Is she the Happiness Project?
The Happiness Project, yeah.
She
and
wrote
that is,
that book.
Yeah, and that's so good for any kind of wanting to get something started or create a project or anything like that. Of don't over edit yourself and lose your passion. You'll lose your passion from that. And just sort of let the momentum carry you with it, and you can figure out some things along the way. Definitely still provide quality, but don't get too caught up in the technical aspects of it, I would say, because what people want is content. Mm-hmm. And that is going to be more important than, oh, is this the right intro graphic? Is this the right whatever?
That's actually a really good point. I didn't think of that, and I think a lot of people get stuck that they don't ever make any progress because they're so worried about it being perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I think that that is the perfect point too. What I was going to say is to focus on being yourself, focus on being authentic, because we were talking about this before we started recording, that when this question came up, my response is I think the most important thing to focus on is don't try to be like other people. Don't try to do it the way Oprah does it, or don't try and do it the way whoever your person is that does it. Do it the way you do it, because then you're taking the stress of it needing to be perfect, the idea of how it has to be, and you're more naturally just showing up with who you are, what your brand is, and you're kind of setting the stage. Plus, I think in regards to the whole online channel, I think just in general, we as like a collective whole need more people who aren't perfect and don't have it all together and are showing like the real startups and beginning phases of everything. So I would say that is like, just make sure when you're doing anything, you're doing it from a true place of it being who you are, and not because you're putting on this show of trying to pretend to be somebody else. Because you can tell, whether it's online or offline, you can tell when somebody's being 100% genuine and when they're trying to just, like, who are you trying to be? Like, you're not that person. Let that person be that person and you be you. And then you're going to attract the right people who fall in love with that.
Especially when you're dealing with online platforms like that, the goal is to connect with your audience, and people can see through the BS. And not to say that like the super edited or whatever things wouldn't get like followers or something like that, but you want to engage with your audience, especially if you have like a product or something like that, and you want to kind of start the dialogue, and you want to earn their trust and their respect.
Right.
I think people respect authentic people, and you want them to respect that. And so don't be afraid to show yourself on that, and don't feel like you need to over edit yourself when you're putting yourself out there like that. Just sort of be yourself, like you said. And don't, I remember one time I was doing a short film in New York, and I was filming a bunch of stuff around Central Park, and just gathering as much footage as I can. And I was with someone, and I was like, oh, I bet that'll be a great shot over there. Let me go get some footage of this really pretty tree, and there was like a wedding going on and stuff. And I was like, I'll just get some B-roll of that. And before I even went over there, the person I was with was like, oh, that won't look good. Don't bother about that. That stops the creativity right away. And it's one of those things where, like, just because it might not fit in, allow your inspiration to sort of, like, surprise you sometimes. Because just because it might not fit in with the plan, but if you feel enthusiastic about it, that's enough of a reason to follow that sometimes. And that'll get your momentum going, and then that's kind of how you start to find your thing, your style, your niche. You find your groove. Yeah, you get in that creative flow kind of space. But the second you start saying no, it's the same if you've ever read Tina Fey's book or know anything about improv comedy. Yes, it's always yes. You know, you never say no, because it totally stops the process. So the one rule of improv is you always just say yes and, yes and, yes and. Because you need that energy to continue flow in and out. So the same thing when you're starting. Yeah, don't cut yourself off like that. Don't stop that inspirational process.
That you saying that, like, immediately, it made me think of the movie with Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston, Just Go With It. When the little girl, she's like, okay, so everybody, in improv, the rule is whatever anybody says, you go with it. Nobody says no, and if you say no, we all say die. And so in that movie, like, Adam Sandler says something like, no, and she's like, die. He's like, I mean, but yeah, so that just made me laugh thinking of that. But yeah, I think that that's a super valid point. I think that that's really important, and just, you know, life in general. Like, let's be real for a second. Nobody knows what they're doing.
Lighten up.
None of us know we don't even know. The first recording we did this podcast, I was like, ooh, this is fun. What is that? Like, but there's no script. It's just a conversation. And I mean, I think that that's the important thing when you're talking about, like, following the enthusiastic path, following whatever feels right to you with your podcast or blog or your videos or business or coaching. If there is something that you're like, this makes no sense on paper, but it feels 100% exciting and my curiosity is sparked.
Right.
Follow that, because there's something about it that is connected to what's meant for you and what's right for you. And I mean, I think that with this question, I think that that's the most important thing to focus on.
Yeah, do not talk yourself out of the gut feeling. Like, if you're feeling something like this is the right thing or whatever, don't overthink it.
Yeah, I think it's important am thinking like in balance and everything, like I think it's important to have things that are strategized and written out. So if you have something that's like, hey, like we talk about social media, like I'm a firm believer in like consistently posting once a day, twice a day. Like I think there are certain things that you need to be regimented in and not so just like, well, I don't feel like this today. It's like, well, okay, sometimes like there's a fine line between follow your feelings and being disciplined in certain parts of your routine, just like exercise, just like nutrition, just like things like that. So it's finding the balance between the two of do what you know you're supposed to do every day, but in doing that, if there's something that kind of starts to trickle off of that, follow that for the most part.
Yeah, get the bullet points down. It's like with these questions. Like, okay, we know within this hour we need to answer these questions that people came in, but don't stress about like we can only talk about these questions now and oh no, we're getting too off track, whatever. You know, like just know what needs to get done, and leave some flexibility for new things to come too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it keeps it light, and I feel like that's what also makes it easy to because I feel like if you ever meet us offline, which you will, I hope that there is no gap in how you connect with us offline and how you connect on the podcast. Like, I hope that the conversation feels as real and genuine and authentic. And I think that that's the whole point of having a brand and having a business is you don't want, and this happens all the time. You meet somebody who you follow on social media or you follow their blog or whatever it is, and you're like, they're not at all like I thought they were going to be. Like, now I feel like I don't know if I want to follow them.
Betrayed.
Yeah, like, you are not the same person. And that's why there is no script, because it's like, this is normal day conversation. This is what we do. Okay, so moving on. The next question, for those of you not watching, you can see my old school pencil that I'm scribbling right now to cross off these questions.
Mechanical number 2 pencil.
These were the best, though, in school.
They still are.
Instead of like the ones with the pencil sharpeners, that the erasers don't really work all that great. Yeah, I have my Bic number 2.7 mm fancy pencil.
Take SATs with those.
Yes. Okay, so going into this third question in regards to business and entrepreneurship, the other question that came in, which is a struggle a lot of people have, and I know you've had this as well, is the dilemma between feeling like there's something wrong with making money while helping people. Almost like it's either not spiritual to help people and make money, or you get one or the other, that people who have money are not as connected to what they're doing, or they're not as authentic, or I feel bad because if I help people and I take from them, it's like you're like taking out of this pot or something that ends. Almost like, well, I don't want to take from them. Like, I feel bad. Okay. This is something that I kind of struggled with in the beginning of personal training is, and it makes, like, when you think of it, like when you're out of that situation, it makes no sense, because I've actually felt bad if I didn't pay somebody what I felt like they were worth. But I used to, like, and this was years ago, I would train people and then they would be like a week late on what they owed me. And at the end of the session of now, like, okay, now we're 4 sessions overdue. I would be so intimidated and timid about, like, hey, so can the payment, like, it wasn't even like a, hey, you need to catch up, you need to make the payment, like, so we can keep doing these sessions. It wasn't confident at all. It was like, I tried to, like, sneak it in as if I wasn't somehow, I already gave you 4 sessions and provided tons of value to you. Hey, if you would like to keep doing this, then you have to keep providing value to me. And a lot of that comes, though, from my experience and just from what I've seen with different people, is it all comes from you having confidence and just believing in your own worth and your own value. What you ask for, you will get. So if you feel super awkward and timid about, okay, well, my personal training is $50 an hour and whatever it is, or whatever your service is that you're providing, people know when you're confident and when you're not. And the thing you have to be careful of is if you don't show up confidently, it makes them question if you really know what you're doing. So you could be like the best at whatever you're an expert in, at whatever you've spent 5-10 years studying and researching. But if you don't if you're not owning that value, and like, I know who I am and I know what I deserve, and I know that when you pay me this, whatever amount it is, you're going to get way more than what you're paying for, just because I believe in what I do and what I'm teaching. And oh gosh, like, there's so many people that just, I feel, and I mean, I'm speaking personally too, like it's such a struggle. And I mean, why is that such a hardship? Why do people, where does this belief come from that helping people doesn't also deserve to be compensated?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, gosh, there's a lot of blocks, I feel like. But one thing, adding on to that you said, is I think it's super, super important to deliver quality content, because that gives you the integrity and the confidence to ask for compensation for it. Mm-hmm. Knowing that you're putting out there, like, you put a lot of energy into this, and this is what you're sending out into the world, and you know that this content is great, and you know that you put a lot of effort into it, and that kind of confidence that you have in the quality of what you're putting out, you should have that same kind of confidence. That's what it's worth. Like, that's what people deserve to be paying you for it, and that's the compensation that you deserve for it. So having the faith and the self-worth in what you're delivering and in yourself, and when you know how valuable it is, it's not so, it feels like an exchange, you're providing them with something so great, and they're providing you with something that you need, and it should feel like an equal exchange. We're both providing each other what this time is worth, and what this whatever product is worth.
Yeah, and I remember one of the things that kind of helped me with this early on is and I only reference personal training because that's how I started. But when I first got certified as a trainer, and anybody who is starting out in any field that involves services or coaching, this is very common. You always did comp sessions. So you did free sessions, and all it was you did like a 15-20 minute workout, and then you would go through an assessment and talk about their goals and things like that. And I remember there was a man who worked at it was Harbor Island Athletic Club, and I was getting frustrated. He had been there for years. He'd been in the industry for like 20 years. And I was getting frustrated because I would have a comp session and people would just not show. They don't call, they don't text, and you're like, gosh, like I was supposed to have one at 3, because the whole idea is you're giving it for free and then you sell them on whatever it is that you're doing. And I was getting really discouraged and having a lot of doubt and taking it super personal, which it was not at all. And he said one of the things, he's like, well, of course they're not showing. They don't have anything invested. Mm-hmm. There's nothing invested. And like that, I don't know, that at that moment I was like, I'm the only one that's showing up. Like, I'm not asking anything of them. Like, I'm coming to invest in them, but I'm not asking them to also invest in return. And so, like, to Michael's point with it's an energy exchange, it's also true, and you'll recognize it when the performance you bring, performance, just like the work and the effort you put into something that you've invested $5,000 into, and the work and the effort you've put into something when you invest $40. Mm-hmm. Like, you're gonna half-ass one, and the other one you're gonna be like, I put $5,000 into this. Like, I'm getting everything I can out of this, and vice versa too. It's the same with clients and people you work with. Like, who gets the most priority, and how much like you make it like your life goal to help them with whatever it is. When somebody's invested again $5,000 in you, so now you're their coach, you're like, oh man, I have to provide them with value. I have to show up with my A game because they've invested it so much in me.
Yeah.
Now I want to invest so much in them. So think of that, like if you struggle with that, with helping people and make money, just remember they're meeting your energy. They're matching what you're bringing to the table. If you are walking into something like doubting who you are, doubting what you're offering, they're going to pick up on that, and they're either not going to give you the same effort, or they're not going to provide you with that compensation monetarily of what you deserve. But it all starts with you, like everything else in life. You have to have that shift within yourself of owning your worth, knowing that you have so much value to offer to the world, and then asking for that value in exchange for what you're giving to them.
Yeah, and I can tell you another thing just from personal experience of working in like a boutique bookstore shop kind of place. We would have events there all the time. Every time we did not ask people to pay a little bit for a ticket, we freaked out before, wondering if people were going to show, and people never showed up for the events because they didn't have the commitment. They, like you said, were invested in it. Even if it was only like $5 or whatever, people show up with that. And also, knowing your value and your worth like that, you sort of set the value of your own worth, and other people will accept that. So why do you think people will spend thousands of dollars on handbags or whatever? Mm-hmm. Because whoever's making them knows what they're worth, and people are willing to pay that. Right. So don't be afraid to ask for that, because people expect to if you have a high value on something, people are expecting quality content from it. And so if you know you have quality content from it, people expect a high value from that. It just works that way. You don't have to be worried about asking for it, but don't cheapen yourself by not asking enough for it. Because even if you're giving your best, if you cheapen the value of it or the price point for it, they're just going to assume that it's not great content anyways.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about this because we all have done this, and I know I've been guilty of this too. How many times have you seen somebody who's putting work or content or something out there that is not even quality, and you're like,
yeah,
people are paying that much money for that? Like, why? That's not even quality. And like, you get annoyed and you get frustrated with it because you almost feel like, I don't know, like missing
a little
out.
Jelly. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're like, that's not fair. Like, I'm putting in way more work. It's not their fault you're not asking for more. Like, they set the bar for what they will accept. Yeah, and so people understand that. So like, well, to you it might be crappy content, or it might be like a piece of art that's terrible, and you're like, I could have done that in my sleep. Like, what is that? It doesn't matter, though. That person has established in themselves, like, what I'm giving you is a ton of value. Therefore, you will pay me $5 million for my Crayola art. And if you don't, then I don't care, because somebody else will.
Yeah.
So like he's talking about with the brands and Louis Vuitton and all these things. Like, if you ever, that's the funny thing about money and business. It's such a game. And like, it's a fun game, but you are playing a game. You are playing a game of when you're going to step up and level up and be like, you know what? I no longer am in the beginner stage of this process, but at the same time, like, it also helps you kind of step back and not take things personally, because I used to see people who were making way more money, doing way more things, thinking they had something that I didn't have. Of like, well, maybe they're getting paid all that because, like, I'm not experienced enough, or I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not known enough, or recognized, or knowledgeable, whatever it might be. And then it was like, wait a minute, no, none of that is true. It's a total mindset shift. It's a total belief system.
Yeah, definitely. And especially when you learn sort of the back end of things and stuff, how much going back to, it's like, what? Like, it's so easy. They just decided that that's what that was worth, and now everyone, like, that's the standard. Yeah, someone is making these decisions, and they're doing it with confidence, and it's becoming the standard for everybody else. So just, there's nothing keeping you from making those same decisions. Just own it and have the confidence to do it. It's not just, it's so funny, I feel like, when you learn the back end of things, how eye-opening it is, because it's all smoke and mirrors up front, and in the back end you're just like, oh, well, okay. That's all. Yeah,
and not to like diminish that there's not hard work that gets put into what you're doing, and there's not time and establishing your brand, but in regards to the compensation that you receive, it definitely starts with you. And even going back to Amy Schumer, is think about like the man or woman that may not be a 10 in regards to like physical looks, but everybody loves them. And you're like, what? Why? Like, if you have a six-pack and they don't, or you look a certain way and they don't, has nothing to do with that. It is the energy and the confidence they have that naturally you're drawn to them. You're attracted to it because you're like, I don't know what they do or who they are, but like, I just want to be around them. I want to work with them. I want to be a part of whatever they're doing, because they just show up in the world owning who they are and what their worth is, and just confident in that. And I think that's a huge part of it. Like, you can have pretty branding and all the perfect things put in place, but if you don't own your worth, it's nobody else's fault.
Yeah, exactly. And you want people who, I think about it sometimes with school, kids that go to college on scholarship, their motivation versus grad school students. That's why professors love teaching grad school students, because those people are paying to be there, and they want to be there, and they're willing to learn. They want the quality and content, and they're the best students to teach because they're engaged. Focus on that, like those people, you know what I mean? Like the people who are when they're paying for something, they're creating a dialogue, and they're really invested into your content, which if you put a lot of work into putting that content out there, or whatever your product is, you want someone who's going to respect it and respect what you do, and those people are willing to pay for it.
That made me think of the Tyra Banks thing with the first top model, when you're talking about kids who do pay for grad school and don't, and like, You look like somebody who doesn't pay bills.
Yeah.
The sense of entitlement,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of, I feel like, could lead into forgiveness.
Yeah. That works. It's a little bit of a stretch, but we can do that.
I mean, I'm trying to make
That was a
it
good
work,
segue.
guys. I'm trying, the questions were kind of all over the place, so I'm like, how are we going to title this in? You know what? We're not, because we don't have a way to segue. So, moving on, the next topic is now forgiveness. Thank you for listening.
Did we cover all the business questions? Because we're about to throw the business stuff to the way.
Yeah,
and get
those
into
were the 3 business questions.
Spiritual.
We then had the personal, spiritual, of forgiveness, and then the sommelier process.
Okay.
I'm going to let you lead off with forgiveness.
Oh, man, my forgiveness. Oh, I could talk a lot about this, though.
Well, okay, so I feel like we should have a little bit of, like, an intro to why this is even being talked about.
Okay.
If you want to.
Yes.
Okay.
Also, if you want a more in-depth take, like, if you want more in-depth of my takes on forgiveness, I just made, like, a 40-minute video this morning that gets into a lot of depth about how I feel about forgiveness and the global state of the world right now. Anyways, so I'll just talk about my story and not generalize. Got out of a situation that I felt was...
I love that you call it a situation.
Got out of a relationship that I felt was unhealthy, toxic situation. Felt like I was very mistreated. And felt like getting out of that was sort of me detoxifying my life kind of thing, like, okay, getting rid of all that junk that's pulling you down kind of thing, which is, I think, very important. But also just one step of the process. I feel like, man, I just talked about it so much. I don't want to like explain for 40 minutes, but, so I feel like basically though, when you're doing like, if you feel like you've been hurt or wronged by somebody and you feel like you're...
So basically everybody listening and watching, when you've been in a situation, quote unquote.
Yeah.
With somebody that, what is it,
not
Christine
nice.
Northrup, were you like...
Energy vampire?
No, but like the way she like worded it of like, okay, let's not just like, it's not a situation. Like, let's just be real. Like when somebody has screwed you over, mistreated you, abused you, taking you for granted, taken advantage of you, stabbed you in the back, like everybody's got that. Okay, continue.
Yeah. Okay, so if you've been in one of those situations, I think it's super important to, take your power back, hold your grounding, separate yourself from the person if you need to, set those boundaries, which is super important. But the important thing is take your power back. What I feel like where I have been at, very importantly, is that those are all important steps to healing. But of course, the biggest step, in my opinion, is forgiveness. Because I feel like just even from a situation of there's been so much divisiveness over the last year among people, just like globally and stuff like that. There's been a lot of separation and a lot of conflict. And while it is important to sort of get rid of the things that pull you down and drain you and that kind of stuff, it doesn't necessarily heal the situation. You take that energy with you until you learn forgiveness. So even though you might leave those people behind or those circumstances or whatever, you're leaving all that behind, you have to go inward and do some inner work on yourself, because you're still there. Those wounds are still there. All of that is still there. That can't heal without the step of forgiveness, in my opinion. So lately for me, it's been a lot about forgiveness is the pinnacle of healing.
Okay, so here's a question, and because our situations are a little bit different.
Right.
What do you do forgiving? Because I've had 2 situations, relationship and a friendship, that both, man, people are just so mean. Anyways, forgiveness without the apology, or forgiveness, not even that, forgiveness without the apology, but forgiveness without any recognition whatsoever that there's responsibility on their end. Just totally like, here's how I'm going to treat you, and goodbye.
Right. So, I totally know what you're talking about that, because that's happened to me a lot of times too. For me, it's just for me personally, I do feel like it's really important to separate behaviors from people and actions from persons. And Brene Brown talks about this a lot, about holding people accountable for their actions and their behavior and being able to differentiate between that and a human being. And what you're doing is you are not forgiving the behaviors, you're not forgiving the actions, you're stating that this is unacceptable and intolerable to me, and I do not accept this anymore in my life. and you have the option to either change that or not change that. But being able to see beyond those actions of, I can forgive the person, I can forgive the soul of this human being who has obviously got a lot of crap going on to be able to treat people this way. I can look past the actions and say, I forgive you, because whatever you're feeling must be not okay, or in so much pain, or I don't know what junk you got going on there. But I send you on your path to healing, like Christian talks about. I send you on your path to healing, and I go on my path to healing. But the important thing, I think, is differentiating between behaviors and actions and people. And you do not have to accept those behaviors. You do not have to accept being treated that way. You can be adamantly against it and angry about that, and that's totally fine. But you're not forgiving the actions. You're not forgiving those behaviors. You're forgiving the person who is going through whatever they're going through for that. And using the example the other day, I've had friends in the past who have sort of very close friends who have sort of like disappeared for a while, or kind of ghosted for a while, and for years even. And you go through that sense of betrayal and what did you do wrong and stuff like that. But over time, they'll come back and change people, and just and I've been able to be there for them. And we're talking about this of, I think when you really know someone, like really, really know someone, and you know the kind of heart that that person has, you have enough grace for them that, you know, we all lose ourselves sometimes in things, and maybe you lose yourself in it and you go through a process of trying to refine yourself, but you sort of want to hold on to the faith that that person might find themselves. And if they can't, try not to lose your view of them, of that person, of the good parts of that. And like whatever they're going through is just being able to differentiate between behaviors and actions and people, and trying to hold on to who the person is at their core. And doesn't mean you have to put up with them. It doesn't mean you have to stay with them or anything like that. Especially if they're not taking responsibility for that. That's not you. But not owning that and taking your power back from that situation.
So 2 things on that. One, at the very beginning when you were talking about how you forgive them but you don't tolerate, it's the thing like my Aunt Angelo said. She's like, I forgive you, now go away. But also, so here's a fear that I struggle with that, and I mean, if anybody else does, hopefully this helps. So doing that, so with the 2 particular situations where you've been wronged and you're dealing with forgiveness, and you understand that this is not their normal self. That idea though, when like you're trying to forgive and you're talking about like seeing the good and trying to remember the good in those people. I think the reason I have a struggle with that is because it almost makes me feel like almost like you're seeing the good in the person, so much so that it almost feels like you're dismissing what they did. Because if you're not communicating with them, you don't see them, it's almost like, yes, I forgive you and I hold you in this light in my mind of who I know you really are. But it's like there's still no responsibility that's being taken for the wrong that was done. And I think that that's my struggle, is it's like I can hold people in that good light, but then it feels like they don't have to take responsibility.
I think a few things about that. First off, I love, there's a section in Brene Brown's book, The Gifts of Imperfection, where she talks about compassionate people are boundaried people, and compassionate people hold people accountable for their actions. 2 things. So if you think you're being kind by not holding someone accountable or by endlessly forgiving them for hurting you, that's not kindness. Kindness is holding people accountable and keeping them responsible. And I think going off on that, what you were saying, it reminded me a little bit of, I wrote it down here, a quote that, a few things. So in your situation, the attention, and for me too, it's just really easy, the attention is still on the other person. Forgiveness is more about and for you than it is for the other person. So if you're constantly you're sort of giving your power away if you make it about the other person too much. If you start focusing on them, why aren't they doing this? How could they do this? Blah, blah, blah. It's still about them. And what you need to do is you need to take that sense of trying to understand and that sense of empathy and grace that maybe you've been continually giving to that person and turn it on yourself. Because you need to make sure you have more love and empathy for yourself and take care of yourself, because there's that sacredness inside of you that you came here to deliver and protect. So that needs to be your first and foremost priority. And if you focus too much on the other person, you're literally neglecting yourself in that situation. You're giving your power away to that other person. And what you want to do, the whole act of forgiveness, is taking your power back. That's what forgiveness is. It's taking your power back and saying, I'm doing this for me. This is about my healing. Focus on your own healing rather than trying to make sense of why is this other person treating me that. It's not your business. They're on their own path to healing. They're responsible for it. They either will or they won't take responsibility for it. But one thing you can do is take responsibility for yourself and take your power back and no longer be the victim. And the second you do that, that person can't hurt you anymore. There's nothing left to forgive because you took away their power. You took away their power from hurting you. That, and I would also say one really, really powerful quote that Oprah talks about, how it's like one of her favorite quotes all the time. It's, forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could have been any different. That's super, super powerful. Just letting go of, stop replaying in your mind, if I had done things differently, or if this would have happened, or they did this to me, blah, 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 stuff. No, you have to, forgiveness is truly being able to let go of that hope that things could have happened differently than they did.
Yeah.
They happened. So now your job is either take your power back and hold it as your own, and focus on your own healing and what you need to do and your own self-compassion and self-love, and stop directing your attention outward all the time, and stop making that other person the solution to your pain, because they're not. And their apology is not going to be the solution to your pain either. The solution is going to be your own self-empathy, your self-love, and bringing that power back into your circle. Because whenever you're needing someone's apology in order to feel better, you're not owning your power. They still have that control over you. They still have that power over you.
Because they can decide whether to give it to you or not.
Exactly. So once you learn how to give that to yourself, how to take care of yourself, forgive yourself for maybe putting up with something that you should have walked away from sooner, whatever you need to do, that's when you get your power back. And then that's when you really don't need an apology from them. That's when you don't need, the reconciliation happens within you. You go inward with it and you get your power back, and that's real healing. That's the importance of forgiveness.
Yeah. No, I think that those are all good points, and I mean, it makes a lot of sense too. I would say that a lot of forgiveness, I think when, again, personally, I think a lot of times when seeking seeking forgiveness kind of, or an apology from somebody else, you're right in the sense that that's usually when it's like, well, actually the person I'm trying to forgive is myself, but I'm forgiving myself for being in that situation, or forgiving myself for allowing it, or like the woman Christiane Northrup, where she's like, okay, now you forgive them, now forgive yourself. Right. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot that I was a part in this process. That also, hey, I forgive myself that I did the best I could with what I knew, and I forgive myself that I put myself here and allowed these things to go on, and I didn't do whatever I needed to do.
Yeah, and ironically, whenever you learn how to forgive yourself and take care of yourself and not needing someone else to behave a certain way in order for you to feel that sense of peace, ironically, that's normally when you get the apology. When you let go of the need for it, suddenly, out of nowhere, someone will just be like, by the way, that was really crappy of me to do that. And you're just like, what? Where was this months ago when I needed it? But, of course, that's just one of those ironies of the universe.
The rules of life, yeah.
Yeah. But you go inward and you get to that place of peace in yourself, and then it ripples outward on an energetic level. Yeah.
Anything else on forgiveness?
Gosh, I could talk a lot about forgiveness, but I think those are a lot of the main points. Taking your power back, letting go of the past, healing. I feel like there's been I'm sure a lot of people have feeling it who are listening to this too.
Hashtag 2017.
Hashtag 2017. The energies have just been so intense and so heightened that there's been so much clashing and conflict and divisiveness. And I think, just a quick little big rant, humanity unfortunately has this history of divisiveness and segregation. And so I would say, I think while it's good to detox and stuff like that, also keep in mind that we're still just human beings and we're still in the same boat together. And I feel like there's been this big pulling apart contrast this last year, and we're starting to realize the only way for us to move forward is to forgive each other and heal and do it together. I think that's kind of where we're at right now with what's going on.
For a second, you reminded me of Tyler Henry, and I was like, man, I want Tyler Henry to come on this and just be like, all right, tell us everything. Papa Mickey.
I know.
That's our grandfather that passed away.
Hollywood Medium's a great show if you ever watch it. It's really good.
I just want a reading by him. Maybe let this podcast grow, and then maybe we'll get a call one day. Oprah and Tyler Henry. Let's all just hang out in this little box.
in the sandbox.
In the
Play in the sandbox with us.
In Santa Barbara. Okay, I know we're coming up on time, and not to like speed through things, but the last question we got was multiple people had asked about what the process is like becoming the sommelier through WSET. So it's pretty simple in regards to what you gotta do, like a lot of things in life. The process behind studying for it and taking the exam, the thing is a beast, like no joke. Also, level 1 and level 2 here in Santa Barbara, I will be educating you guys on that if you do sign up. But Napa Valley. Aside from that though, so there's a lot of different platforms that you can go through. WSET, W-S-E-T, Wine and Spirits Education Trust, is a place, it's a website, it's actually based out of London, but they hold the certifications for that. There's also, trying to think of the other, Court of Somalia, the Guild, Court, oh my god, I can't think right now. Guild, G-U-I-L-D. But anyways, you can become Court of Masters. Napa Valley Wine Academy, shout out to them, woo, is who I went through. So there's like, WSET is the certification, and then you have all these accredited different schools that you can go through. I thought Napa Valley Wine Academy did the best job. I actually took it in Tampa. There's Tampa, Denver, Nashville, Vegas, Santa Barbara, Napa, and I think they just added another one. But I thought they did the best job because they were very thorough. So WSET has a set amount of wines you're supposed to taste, certain topics that you'll be tested on, and Napa Valley Wine Academy went above and beyond that. And so like if you're, for example, if you're studying and it's, you should know the difference between a New World and Old World Chardonnay, which New World would be like here, like the US and Australia, and Old World would be like France, Italy, things like that. But with that, because there's so much variety and all of that, Napa Valley Wine Academy, instead of just doing, and by the way, I don't get anything by mentioning them 5 times, it's just I thought they did a good job. But instead of just like, okay, here's a California Chardonnay and here is something from Chablis in France, like here's the difference between the two, they actually had us try multiple wines that were from different regions to help us further decipher, like, oh, I get it, that's why this tastes like this and this tastes like that. Where a lot of the other ones, when I had like research doing it, it was basics, like talking about value and what you're providing. Like, it's just, okay, this is what you need, this is what you're getting, like, good luck. But so pretty much what happens if you go through that route with WSET is there's level 1, level 2, level 3, and then from there you can do your Masters of Wine, or they call it diploma, MW diploma. I have not done MW. I don't think I will, because it's like a year-long study. Like, you are required, I believe it's a year, to study for at least a year before you can even take the test. And that's when, gosh, that's when it gets crazy. That's when it's more like you're buying, like, gosh, I can't even think of it. The things that you smell. So when you're doing the palette and you're doing the bouquet, the smells and all those things, there's certain things you pick up on. And when you get to like MW level, that's where you're like buying I can't even think of the name of the word, but anyways, you're buying like wood chips and cedar chips and tobacco and you're smelling all these things because you have to be so on point. Like, you have a smelling kit, you have a tasting kit, like, it's crazy. And people's, like, your index card stack is like 1,000 index cards trying to remember things like, was it granite soil, or was it sand, or was it clay, or was it whatever. But so, okay, I was just seeing how much time we had. But so when you do it, level 1 is really good if you know nothing about wine. Like, if you are 100%, I've never even gone to a vineyard, I don't know anything about tasting, I don't know what a Cab or Chardonnay even is, or Amarone. Level 1 would be really good to start with. If you know a little bit about wine, but you're really new to regions and varietals, level 2 would be good, because you do taste, you do tastings, you are taught the different regions, so you learn about Italy and France and Spain and Australia and Germany and all this stuff, but it's like just the basics of what you need to know. And then level 3 is super extensive. Like, I mean, you got to know the regions, the appellations, you got to know the difference between, like I said, like New World and Old World, and you got to know, like, if you're tasting something, and I'm trying to remember, like, some of the craziness on this test. Like, if you're tasting a Chardonnay and instead of tropical fruits, it has more minerality and crisp and bright. You got to know, like, automatically, okay, so it's not tropical fruit, it's not that, like, pineapple and kirsch and all these things, then I know it's a cool climate. Warm climate, the fruit ripens more, and I'm going to get totally, like, wine nerd on you, but that's kind of the process. So if you're somebody that feels pretty advanced in what you know about wine, I mean, I went for it. I did not take level 1 and level 2. I went right for level 3. But if you're not confident in that, level 1, level 2 through WSET is a 1 and 2 day course. Level 3 is a full week intensive, or you can study for like 6 months to a year and then do the full week intensive. But yeah, that's kind of the process. It's a fun process. You meet people from all over because level 3 is not offered everywhere. It's only in certain locations in the US. And then the other thing too is you can just work in a wine bar or a wine shop or something like that and gain the experience first while having fun with it of taking level 1 or level 2 and just like applying the knowledge that you're learning in that. And side note, I've never worked in a restaurant or a bar. Like, I enjoy the education of wine and going to the vineyards. I am so not a service industry person. But yeah, that's kind of the process, and like we can put that in the show notes, the Napa Valley Wine Academy and WSET. It's really easy. Just Google it, how to become a sommelier or how to get certified in wine. But yeah, that was the last question that we had. Sommelier.
Awesome.
Super awesome. We got a lot.
Yeah, we covered it all.
Send us your questions. Thank you. Thank you for everybody who gave us the 5-star review.
That was super exciting. Yeah.
That was a really good surprise. Like, I literally, I was like, oh, did you see this? Did you know? Did you get? And he was like, what? No, I didn't get a notification. Because at first I'm like, why would you not tell me? Because he does all the back end stuff.
And it's nice knowing, like, obviously you guys don't see how much work gets put into everything. So it's really nice. Just those little things, like the reviews and stuff, are very validating and just sort of encouraging to keep going. And nice to know that someone's getting some positive, takeaways from our conversations and podcasts and stuff. So
yeah, and if you have, so we do this every single week here in the Sandbox in Santa Barbara. When you have questions, you can message Michael. It's at Michael Drummonds, or you can message me at Ashley Drummonds on Instagram. You can go to my website. It's ashleydrummonds.com.
If you're looking for more like spiritual things or intuitive abilities, psychic abilities, empathic abilities, michaeldrummonds.com.
Yeah, but like send us the questions. Also, a few of you guys did this and it made me so excited. If you do listen to this on your iPhone or whatever awesome phone that you have, screenshot it and then tag us in it on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or whatever it is, because like I see all of that, he sees all of that, and like it's really inspiring and just it's really nice. Like, it's really nice knowing you guys are listening and that you're enjoying it. And we did get some great comments and feedback about how much they love it and getting the answers to their questions. So yeah, be sure to do that. Like, that is 100% us. Like, there's nobody else managing that. Like,
yeah, there's not a team of people. It's just the two of us doing this.
You saw the team, yeah. But yeah, so let us know. We love it.
Yeah, this was really great. And keep sending your questions, and we definitely answer them. And we like engaging with you guys. We also upload all of these episodes onto YouTube if you're watching this.
So if you want to
see videos on what the Sandbox room looks like, you can go to
youtube.com/Ashley Drummonds TV.
I think it's Abs TV. But yeah, either Ashley Drummonds or Abs TV channel.
Yeah.
But it's on there, and there's other podcasts on there. You have a lot of stuff on your YouTube, actually, for
there's
workouts.
There's a lot, yeah.
There's a ton of content on there that's just free and available to you guys. So.
But if you're on my website, if you're on ashleydrummonds.com, there's the little YouTube icon that you can, all the social icon, you can just click on it and it'll take you there. But yeah.
All right.
Happy, Wednesday this goes out?
Yes.
Happy Wednesday!
Woo, happy hump day.
Hope that next week is a great week for you, which will be your current week, which is weird.
Yeah, and we hope to hear from you guys soon. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye, guys.